Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and guess what? I created another UI library using web components. Basically, from playing with Vue and React and some of the other libraries I worked on, I keep getting new ideas that require sort of a separate library because the syntax, the way I do things is different enough that it warrants another library. So if you've ever been to my website, alexmercedcoder.com, you can find access to all my stuff. Like, if you need me for any kind of consulting gig to kind of help you walk through what stack you want to use, or even actually help you develop your project, you can reach out to me there. You can find my YouTube channel, my GitHub, my LinkedIn, my podcast, and then some Slack and Discord community so you can meet other developers such as myself and just going to be part of the community. And then last but certainly not least is my JavaScript library section, where these are all the libraries I created. Actually, this page is created using one of the libraries I made. So that's cool. Okay. Now, here, most of these libraries are UI libraries, so they allow you to make web components or something like web components. Things like mblocks and render component and render blocks. Those are the ones that don't use web components. They actually try to figure out another way to kind of have the same effect because I was curious. And then you have some utility libraries like Merced utils, better types, mutils. These kind of do the same things in 3 different ways, but they offer you a bunch of cool extra functions on your arrays and sets. And I think those are all the main libraries I have here. Okay, so the new one is AMPonent. I originally wanted to call it Ponent, but there was already someone who made a library called Ponent. So I just stuck my initials in front of it, AMPonent. So we're going to head over to the NPM page. You could download it via NPM if you have a build setup with like React, Parcel, or Rollup, and you'd be able to use this library. I'm just going to use a straight up script tag. So I'm just going to copy the script tag from the right here from the markdown, and I'm going to create a new folder here. New folder called custom lib. Okay. New folder. We're going to call this AMPonent1 because we're using AMPonent, and I'm going to create a new file, index.html. We'll just set up our basics, the boilerplate. We're going to include our library here. So there's my library. So that way all you have to do is include it, and then you create your own custom script tag, which will be an app.js. That'll be your custom JavaScript. And basically, we need to actually make that file. And this probably should have a defer keyword on it. New file, app.js. Okay, now let's just show you basically everything revolves around this AMPonent object. Okay, you have really 3 functions on it that can be useful. Okay. So the main one is the make function. So AMPonent dot VS Code AMPonent dot make. This will allow you to make a component. Okay. So we're just going to create a basic hello world component. Hello world is going to be the component's name, the actual HTML tag, and then here you pass in an object. And the only thing you actually have to pass in is a render function. That's really kind of like, I mean, you don't even have to do that, but then what's the point? Okay, and then you just pass in an arrow function. And I'm not going to, typically what the render function receives is the box. Think of the box as like this particular library's version of state or data from Vue. And then props. So if you've used Vue or React, you're familiar with props. Okay. And it just needs to return a template string. So we'll just say h1 hello world h1. Okay, and that should work. Okay, so that's done. So now I think that's a lot less syntax, a lot less lines than if you had to do it just through straight web components. And if I go here, I just type in now hello world, and we should be able to use that component. So let's open this up in Live Server. And there it is. Okay, cool. So not so bad. That's the let's explore this a little bit more. There's a lot of different properties. You have to read the documentation, lots of lifecycle functions. But I can also define the box. The box is going to be, again, this like state. So the box is just going to be an object. So let's define a property called hello that says hello world. And I'll add an exclamation point so you see the difference. And then I can interpolate that here, because again, the box is passed into the render function. So now I can do something like this. Box dot hello. And that's going to interpolate my template. Hello world. Nice. So again, the box is just the data. Okay. Now let's add a button to our setup here. So button. Okay, and again, as far as styling goes, you could watch my web component styling masterclass video that will kind of cover how all the different ways you could style this. H1 box.hello button, click me. Cool. Okay, so now we've added a button. Let's just double check the button appears. There it is. Now I want to add a click listener to that button. Okay, the best place to do it is use a lifecycle function. Now I'm not gonna. The thing is that every time this component renders, it's going to kind of recreate the component. So in that case, I need to add the event listener after every render. So I'm going to use the after function. The after function runs after every render. Pretty much the theme here is that every function you can define here takes the box and takes props. Okay. And let's see here. Let's say that what I want to do here, so actually I'll use curly brackets because I want some other stuff to happen here. What I want to happen after every render is I want us to select, and here's the thing. To select that button, I'd have to do this. I'd have to do this, dot shadow root, dot query selector, button. And then I'd have to do add event listener. To make things easier, I build like a very, very mini little jQuery into your components. So basically it just works like this. You just do this dot $S. So $S is the same thing as shadow root dot query selector. SA is the same thing as like selector all. And then ID would be the same thing as get by element by ID. So this will save you time. So I can just do S and pass in the button. So I select the button, and then we can just do the normal add event listener. Okay, add event listener, which is going to be a click function. And what that function is going to do, it takes in the event object because it's an event. But really all this is going to do is update the box. So the function kind of like set state in React is stuff box. Okay, you're going to put stuff in the box. And you just pass in an object, and it's going to reconcile the two. So you don't have to recreate the whole box. If the property wasn't there to begin with, it'll get added. Because what it does, it merges the elements. And always merges the newer one first. So if you change what hello is, that will override the old hello. So hello becomes, and what I'm going to do is we're going to say props.hello. So we're going to have another hello, a prop, and it'll equal that. Okay, so that we can use props at the same time. Okay, and then that's what that does. And when that stuff box function runs, like you can change the box directly using this.box. It just like React, it won't cause another render. So if you don't want to trigger another render, you could do that. But if you want another render, you want the UI to update, then you got to use the stuff box function, and this got to actually be this.stuff box. There we go. Cool. So this stuff box, hello, props.hello. Okay. Now we need to go to the HTML and actually include a props that's called hello. So we're going to say hello equals goodbye world. hello equals goodbye world. Okay, so now we have the button. Let's see if it works. Oh, something didn't go right there, so let's take a look at our inspector. This is not a function. I'll have to go back and take a look at that. Okay, so then let's do the original version. It should be, but I'm not going to fight with it right now. Oh, I know why. Because I did an arrow function. So this doesn't refer to the right this. So I got to change this to function. So in general, you should probably write your functions in this syntax, because of the lexical scoping of this. So if you're going to use this in your function, yeah, set it up like this. So let's try that again. And there it goes, it works. Okay, goodbye world. So see, it updates the UI in the way you'd expect it to. Okay, very neat. And then there's a whole bunch of, there's before first, which would be before the first render, before, which is before every render. There's after, which we just used. There's after first, which is after the first render, and destroy after the. So you can name all those there. Cool. Now let's say you want to have like custom functions. Okay. Basically, what would happen is you would create an object called funcs. Okay, and all of these should also have the same setup. So let's say we create an object, and this object is going to include functions. So we're just going to create one called test. And again, all these functions end up taking in the box and the props. So long as you're not referring to this, you don't have to worry about it. But if you are going to refer to this at any point, you want to use function syntax. I'm not even sure if you even need to do that for these. But box props, and we're just going to console.log test. Okay. Or console.log test, just so you can see that this function works. So the way you use these functions, I'll just stick it right over here, is there's a use func function. And all you do is you pass in the name of the function, so test. And then you can use any of the functions that are in funcs. Okay, so use func. And now let's go back over here. Let's see if console logs test, which it did, but not yet. Test, 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 test. So it works. Beautiful. Okay, so you guys can kind of get the idea. There's even a reducer. Okay, so if I wanted to update it using like a Redux like reducer, I can do that. You would just define the reducer here. I'll put the comma in there. Reducer. And this particular function ends up taking the box, props, and a payload. Okay, so if you've used Redux, you'll know exactly where this goes. Okay. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll just say, hey, if the payload, we'll do a switch. The payload, and we'll just say if the payload is hi, then we're going to return hello is good day. Break. If oh no, it's not. It should be case. You can tell I just woke up. Okay. And then if this is case, bye. Then we'll return hello, adios. Okay, and then we'll break, and then for default do nothing. Okay, break. That's fine. Okay. And again, the way this works is you have this. So based on the payload, different things will happen. The object that's returned gets passed into the stuff box function. So it'll update the state. Okay, but really I'm updating the state depending on the payload that arrives. So we need to create some more buttons. Okay. And I'm going to give these buttons IDs. So ID equals 1. Okay, ID equals 1. ID equals hi. ID equals bye. Okay, I'm actually going to use the ID. Oh, the ID should not be before the tag name. ID equals bye. And I'm going to alter this a little bit, so that way I don't have to create a second listener. So I'm actually going to add one more case. I'm going to add a case if it's the string of 1. Then what it's going to do, it's going to return hello equals props.hello. So that'll do exactly what it's been doing already. Break. And basically what we're going to do here is change this. Instead of this dot stuff box, we're going to use this dot dispatch. Okay. And basically all we do is we pass in a payload, and the payload is going to be the event dot target. We'll say actually current target, event dot current target dot ID. So it'll either be 1, hi, or bye, which will then be passed into this reducer function, and based on the switch, it'll update the state as needed. So all the buttons will get this. So actually this should be select all. Actually, let's see if this works. All add event listener, because I want to select all the buttons. Yeah, let's give it a shot. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to work the way I want it to. Yep, that's what I thought. So what I want to do is do a dot for each, because that's going to be an array of buttons that I get back. So dot for each. And what we're going to want to do is for each button, I will just say B. So each button is a B in the array. We'll do B dot add event listener. And let me just add another parenthesis here at the end. And then I think we're good. Let's take a look. Good. So now if I click this one, box is not defined. Let me think about that for a second. Box is not defined. I have a feeling it's probably going to have to do with this again. So once again, let's just change this to function box props payload. Okay. And then this dot dispatch ID, and that just passes that stuff into this function. Okay, let's try this again. Box not defined. Okay, so this might be something I need to fix in the underlying library. That's why I like doing these videos. It allows me to catch the bugs. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, so yeah, that was a quick bug. Really simple one. Just forgot this keyword. So this is now working. So again, the code was fine. I just had to do a quick fix in the library. So now if I click each of these buttons, again, like a Redux type dispatcher, I click on this button, it sends one payload, which causes one change in the state. Okay, so instead of creating one function for each button, I'm just able to use the reducer to alter the state based on the payload that's passed in. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So that is I think for the most part, most of the features in making your own component. Aside from that, you can get creative by creating your own funcs, and sky's the limit. Okay, but see, this is a nice sort of functional way. You don't have to worry about doing multiple functions and then doing like a custom elements define. It just works. Okay, once you get used to the syntax and the logic of it. Okay. Then another function you have here is that, let's say I wanted to create a div that has a bunch of props. So props cheese equals Gouda, stuff equals more. So this is this div here. What I do is there's a function in here, AMPonent, that allows you to grab all the props, capture props. Okay, and then we would just do document dot query selector and select that div. There's only one div, so it'll just capture that one. And let's console log that. So you can see that it returns an object of all the props on that div. So now if we go back to our screen here and see, there it is, an object of the props. The reason is, usually if you just go grab the attributes, like you can use the get attributes property, it returns you sort of this iterable object that isn't the easiest thing to work with. So why have to think through how to convert that when I already have a function that does it for you? Okay, so that's neat. So you have that, and the last function it gives you is a sort of a way to create wrapper components, like components that style things. So for example, if I do AMPonent dot make style, okay, then what I do is I will choose the name. So we'll just call this a red h1. Then what I'll do is we'll choose the target element. So we're going to say that we're expecting that this sort of styled component should be targeting an h1. So we'll do that in a string. h1, and what we want it to do, and then in this last one we just put the styles we want to apply to it. So I'm going to say color red, font size 2 EMs, okay, and save. So that component now exists under this HTML tag red h1. So first we'll create an h1. I will be styled. And then if I go back to the page, so we see the h1 right now, it's not styled. But if I wrap this h1 in the red h1 tag that we just created, and then I just wrap this closing tag in it, Control X. Okay, there we go. Now I will be styled. Okay, so it does get styled, but only styles the h1. So if I put an h2 in here, h2, I will not be styled. That doesn't get styled. So you can create individual wrappers, very much like React styled components in there. In the future, I may try to see if I can create like a built-in router. I have to think that one through. I've done it before, but this one might require me to do it a little bit differently. But aside from that, this can pretty much do most things. So I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. So give it a shot. And then if you find bugs, make a pull request. Good opportunity for you to work on an open source project. Good opportunity for me to clean up my libraries. So my name's Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.